Welcome everybody to this week's IPLD Sync meeting. It's May the 9th, 2022, and as every 2 weeks, we go over the stuff that people have worked on and will work on, and then we discuss any open agenda items. Today we even have an agenda item. All right. And of course, like if you attend, please add your name to the attendees list. This week, even I have an update, finally, because I worked a bit on Rust things and IPLD. And I'm happy to announce that there's now a new DAG-CBOR codec, and it's based on SERDE. For those not familiar with Rust, SERDE is for serialization and deserialization, and it's basically the standard that you use in the Rust world. And in the past, there have been discussions if we can use it for IPLD or not. And I always said that that's not possible with IPLD because the data model is different, and that's still the case. But we use a workaround that also other formats use. If you, for example, want to do things like dates, which is not part of the data model, but you want to represent dates somehow. And we use a similar hack in order to get CIDs working, because like the rest of the data model matches quite well between IPLD and SERDE, but CIDs do not. And we found a good hack for it, or like basically the hack that everyone is using in the ecosystem for such cases. And what it means for you, if you want to use it, you can kind of just use it, derive your serialization and deserialization automatically, and get CBOR out. Currently, it's the only codec we have. So hopefully, perhaps someone from the community comes up with a DAG-JSON one, because what you then can do, which is pretty nice, you could then directly convert DAG-CBOR to DAG-JSON and back without a real intermediate step. So you don't really serialize it into the IPLD data model, but you stay within the SERDE data model, which would be quite nice. What you need to do is, so what we need to do for CBOR was that you need to fork an existing library to add support for the CIDs, but that's mostly it. So compared to the upstream version of this library, there's not that much difference normally, but especially for DAG-CBOR, for example, we want to have some things stricter or less, or like basically the serialization should be quite strict. So we don't support tags and so on. So we've added those strict checks that you would normally not have for CBOR, but we need for DAG-CBOR. It's based on a library. So the underlying CBOR parsing is done by a library called CBOR for II. And I want to mention it because the author was really great and helping with the development. And like when I had questions, super responsive, and like it's a super nice open source project, and I'm happy to help out there. And yeah, it was really good, good working with them together on this. And they also did releases when we needed them. And so because this project was also it's critical, or was critical, for the Filecoin virtual machine, it was great to basically have support from the open source, where basically someone is responsive and helps out. Yeah, really great work. So shoot out to the author. Yes, that's my update. So next on the list is Adine.
Yes, I'm next. All right, so I've been doing some work on WebAssembly plus IPLD things, which I've mentioned previously. Where we last left off was we had ADL support for large bytes, and that was it. I've been working on sort of reworking the APIs to be reuse more components and be a little more like less tailored for each individual function, so you can sort of share pieces, and include things like returning error codes instead of just panicking and dying, and working on a BitTorrent directory ADL. Basically, I wanted an example of a recursive type as opposed to a plain type like bytes or strings or integers or something, because then there's more complexity there. And yeah, there's still a little bit to go there of me fighting with Rust things that I'm still new at. But next up will be finishing that, reworking the Go bindings so that they can then handle the new ADL types. And then we'll be able to see a nice demo where my koala loads from a directory instead of just as the root object of a thing. There are sort of some interesting things that we get to now, revisit or re-examine as part of this too, which includes, I think there's probably, like, aside from all the ADL stuff, there's some, like, let's look at what happened with BitTorrent post-mortem things to look at whether it's like, where do we decide to draw the codec versus ADL boundaries? Or is the Unix FS style where you enter the Unix FS ADL and then you just live there forever, right? As you recurse through directories and into files. Is that the strategy? Or do you go like one layer at a time and then reinterpret, and then one layer at a time and reinterpret? Right, like, do you assume from now on everything is a BitTorrent directory, or is it like just the first thing is a BitTorrent directory and then who knows? I followed the Unix FS model for now because it seemed natural, also the directory structure. But yeah, some interesting things that will emerge from that. And hopefully once that looks a little more complete, then we can I'll start rolling out more specs around, yep, okay, this thing actually works on more than just the one example that I used. Because now it'll have support for, recursive types and things like bytes. And that's all for me.
Thank you. Next is Mauve. Ma'am, we can't hear you.
No audio, Mauve.
Yeah. We still can't hear you. So you are unmuted, but we can't hear you.
I think that was a go on to the next person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next one is Rod.
Okay. So I did lots of little things the last couple of weeks. Lots of little things around IPLD and multi-codec, multi-formats. The main thing that I nearly got over the line is the unified CI stuff for Go IPLD Prime. So kind of working on macOS, Windows, got all the vet and static check fixes done, figured out a strategy for getting the tests working in CI with the way that the unified CI wants to work. And the main barrier there has been because it wants to use coverage, the plugin tests don't work. And so the strategy is to find a way to disable the plugin tests. We've come up with a couple of ways of doing that, but I think we've got a good way that doesn't require upstream changes to the unified CI pipeline, and then introducing a second lot of tests, like a second action that runs them without coverage, just on Linux, doing the plugin tests, so we actually get proper coverage in CI. So it's a couple of hoops to jump through, but it means we get some pretty good coverage. So I think I'll be able to merge that and get that fixed today. So that's good. It feels nice to get that done. I had a hack week for my team. Not last week. Oh, was it last week? I don't even know. I
think it was 2 weeks ago. Maybe.
2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago. And I spent most of my time, lots of little things around IPLD Prime and some other places, but I spent most of my time on hacking Go Bitcoin codec. It's just an itch I've wanted to scratch, and I had a lot of fun doing that. Not finished, but it's I keep on going back to it in some spare time to tinker with it to try and get over the line. I'd really like to get a new codec in that uses bind node. That's, I think, what has emerged as one of the goals. So using BindNode to do a simplified form of a codec and demonstrate it, because we've got other people doing codecs and doing the whole schema code gen thing. It's really verbose, and would be nice to have alternative ways for people to do this. And we also have this question around, are we maintaining, which one are we maintaining? Are we maintaining both the code gen and BindNode, or only one of them? And yeah, because neither of them are complete, and both of them have different kinds of incompleteness. So which one do we want to really invest in for now is an interesting question. Anyway.
Thanks. Let's try with Mauve again. I can't see. Oh, I can see you, but we can't still hear you. No audio. No. Okay, so then we go on with Musin.
Thanks. Yeah. So I just recently pushed my prototype for IPLD update, and it's kind of based on the code that Eric wrote. I've changed. It is a similar approach with some tweaks, and basically what it does is that it accumulates updates as they're applied. So it lets you accumulate as many updates as you want before any node objects are constructed. And the other thing it does is that it provides a lens to encode, which will just see a node object that has all the updates in there, regardless of how they're being stored and accumulated inside. So if y'all get a chance to look at it, let me know what you think. That's it for me.
Thanks.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, I switched microphones.
Perfect timing, because it's your turn now.
Excellent. So actually following up on the IPLD operations stuff, I'm actually finishing up the IPLD patch spec. So Eric or Warpfork started putting together some tests and an initial implementation in Go IPLD Prime. So I'm just going to be finishing up whatever needs to be done to get it merged as my next steps. So hopefully that'll all just be upstream in a few weeks. Other than that, some stuff I was working on got merged. So we now have a new what is IPLD image and some new descriptions on the website. And the IPLD/reviewers team is up and running. So if you're on the Go IPLD Prime repo or the IPLD/IPLD repo, you can at IPLD/reviewers to tag a bunch of people that can review your code. So this is probably going to be more useful when we have more capacity or more people just contributing to the repos. But for right now, that's there to start playing around with for people actually working on these repositories. Also, I'm planning on merging the exploration report I did initially for IPLD URLs. This isn't like a formalized spec yet. And I think Adine had a lot of useful comments for stuff that would be useful to actually differentiate it from existing features in the gateway. So I think it'll be useful to like strategize more about like how we can actually make a spec and see if we can get buy-in from other parts of the ecosystem to actually use the spec. This initial one is like bare bones, just like getting and putting stuff from IPLD URLs, kind of like using IPFS or IPNS URLs. So we'll kind of see how that goes. Finally, I've been working on putting together a dev grant for formalizing chunky trees into a spec. So I think I've mentioned it a few times, but we're starting to have calls now, and we're going to be doing a call with some of the people that originally made this spec. And so the idea is we want to make it easier to create indexes and stuff using IPLD data structures. So if you have a large data set, it'll be easier to index it and then search through large chunks of data without having to figure out how to do that every single time you want to do an application. So right now we're mostly figuring out what exactly we're going to do. And we've got one person that's interested in committing on the research side of things, but it would be useful if there's any Go developers out there that would want to jump on and kind of like, sink their teeth into some IPLD development. So this is open for pretty much anyone in the community to join in. So if you're interested, hit me up on Move, on Matrix, or on Discord in probably whatever channels you're already in. Cool, that's all I got.
Thank you. Any more updates from anyone? If not, then I have an agenda item, a quick one. Yes, those not familiar, we have chat rooms, several ones, so on several platforms. And the question came up is, so I guess the most used one is probably on Matrix, the IPLD channel, which is bridged to Discord. And in Discord, it's called IPLD Chatter. And then it's also, I think, I don't know if it's currently bridged, but it will be bridged or is bridged also to Filecoin Slack somewhere, I don't know where. And we have another channel called IPLD Dev. And like originally, this was more like for internal development of the team, but it's, as far as I can tell, not really used. And looking back in the time from the IPLD team in the past few years, there was always the idea that we do more things in public, and we're all open source people. So I would also be pushing for just having a single channel, I guess, because like there's also not that much traffic currently. And I don't see really the point of having like a semi-internal one for developers, because like, yeah. So in my opinion, we should have a single channel, which is bridged to Discord, Matrix, and Slack, and that's it. And then if it gets too noisy, we can branch off. But yeah, so I just want to hear from others, like what they think, if we should have two channels or one channel, or yeah.
Cool. Thanks for raising, Volker. So yeah, totally agreed. Whatever happens, we'll make sure it gets bridged to all the places. So that will definitely happen. It may not be the case yet, but that will happen. And what we had happen a few minutes ago with IPLD in terms of their, at least in IPFS Discord, there being an IPLD chatter and an IPLD dev, that was kind of following the convention of IPFS, where at least it's very useful to separate out, why isn't my node working and all that kind of chatter. Why doesn't this install, etc., from like those who are actually doing IPFS implementations. But I can totally see how like maybe that doesn't make sense in the IPLD world, but that was kind of wanting to make sure there was a high signal place where those who are working on implementations are not distracted by like support requests. If IPLD doesn't need that, like great, I think I'm all for combining it. But that was the mental model. But so anyway, I'm not really adding anything. I'm curious what others who live in these channels more than I do think to combine to one or keep them separate.
One sounds pretty good to me. I think two had some utility when nobody really wanted to use threads in the Matrix channel because it would break everything. But now that you can use threads, at least from the Matrix side, and it still makes its way everywhere, I think it's probably fine. I think the one time I, accidentally used the Discord only channel, and then people were like, let's go move it to the other channel. And then I was like, okay, great. So I've left like half of the history in the other channel. So I think probably just collapsing it is the way to go.
For what it's worth, I think both channels are fully bridged up. I think when I first started working on IPLD stuff, one of them wasn't. And then I like repeatedly prodded Discordian and bridges got set up. But yeah, I could see it being confusing. Like myself, I wasn't aware which one was really for which, because it's just like IPLD channels. I'll just post in one. So I'm into it. It would be nice not to lose the history though, for searching. I don't know if deleting channels will destroy the history, or if we can mark them as archived or read only or something.
That's a good point. Yeah, we should. Steve, can you put this on a list somewhere? Because I guess you will have the problem with other channels as well. Or like, are you still the one who is dealing with those things?
Yeah, I mean,
Or,
I'm
like-
definitely dealing with making sure NDRES rehomes into Filecoin Slack. And so obviously part of that commitment was that we have public bridging out into Matrix and also to Discord. I think IPLD is the only case where we're going to like collapse a channel. But yeah, I'm fine for that to be, to take that or to find an owner for it.
Okay, thanks. All right. Yeah, I guess then it's decided that we collapse it to a single channel. Cool. All right. Anything else people want to discuss? No. Cool. Then this week it was a quick meeting. And as every week, so this is the end of the live stream, but if you want to hang out, it's now the time for also like off-topic things or secret things you can't share publicly. So yeah, so feel free to hang out, but say goodbye to the live.